This is an ATS approved resume and this is not. By the end of this video, you'll know how to tell what is ATS friendly, what is ATS optimized, and what is ATS garbage. So your resume will stop getting thrown in the trash and you can get way more interviews. Since I started resume writing professionally in 2018, I've spent thousands of hours researching and perfecting my style so that our resumes are being not only read by the ATS, but favored by the ATS. In this video, I'm going to teach you the 3 secrets you need to know to not only get through the ATS scanning portion of our applications, but to also impress the heck out of the human beings that are going to read the resumes once you get through the ATS process. So, what is an ATS anyway? Well, it stands for Applicant Tracking System, and it is a feature of many companies' HR software that they use to run all their people-related operations. Now, when it comes to job applications, ATS tools are used for a few things. They're used to gather all of the applications from all the different platforms. They're used to communicate effectively with the candidates who've applied to the jobs, to schedule interviews, and as they are also known for, they are used to review, sort, and sometimes even rate resumes. Now, because of the rise of remote work, more people than ever are applying to jobs. And because of the introduction of AI, it's getting easier and easier to write resumes. By the way, if you haven't started to use AI to write your resume and you'd like some help getting started, check out my ebook, The ChatGPT Resume. I've linked to that down in the description. Now, because of these factors, we are seeing the average number of applicants per job go up and up, with some industries seeing averages of over 300 applicants per job. Because of those numbers, this is why we're seeing companies start to use ATS tools to help them sift through the massive pile of resumes to find who is good. So, we're going to talk about the 3 steps we need to follow to make sure we're getting through that ATS review process and impressing the people reading our resumes as well. Now, the first secret to getting through the ATS scanner is to make sure our resume template is ATS friendly. Now, there's a few factors that go into that. Now, not all ATS platforms are the same, but generally the first thing we want to do is make sure we're minimizing text box. So some ATS scanners might have trouble reading content in text boxes in the correct order. So if you're using a single text box, you might be okay, but if your entire template is designed using text boxes, then we might want to rethink what template we're using. Next, we want to be careful when we're considering using multiple columns in our resume template. Now, I'll admit I love a 2-column resume template, but when they're done right, they do look really good and can certainly stand out. I just want you to make sure that if you are using a 2-column template, that you've done so using a template designed in Microsoft Word using the columns feature, because a lot of those 2-column templates that you'll find online are built using text boxes. Finally, when it comes to ATS scanners, we just want to be careful about using images and graphics because sometimes they can mess up this tool's ability to read the text properly. Now, if you want to be sure that your resume template is ATS friendly and you don't want to have to put in the work or worry about it, just grab one off my website. I've linked to all my resume templates down in the description. The second secret also has to do with making sure the ATS scanners can read your resume properly. Now, this one's super simple, but we just want to make sure that we're using ATS approved section headings so that the software does not get lost while it's reading your documents. This means you'll use standard headings for each section, headings like professional summary, experience, education, and we also need the resume to be listed in reverse chronological order. So our most recent experience should be at the top. And when it comes to our experience section, every job should have this information, preferably in this order: job title, company name, company location, and dates including months. Now, if you use the correct headings and you have all this information in the correct order and you're using all the resume template advice from secret number 1, you should have no problem having your resume read by most ATS scanners. However, when you fill out an application for a job, many of these platforms are going to ask you to fill out a form that asks for all the same information on your resume. I would recommend just filling this out. This is the ATS's backup to make sure that if it wasn't reading your resume correctly, that it would still get all the information it needed. Simple as that. Fill out this form, you'll be in great shape. Now, up to this point, we've only talked about making your resume ATS friendly so that the ATS scanner can read it. But this next secret, the most important one, the thing I've spent my entire career figuring out, is how to make sure we are ranking higher in the ATS scanners, and yes, also being ready to impress a human being reading this. So when those hundreds of applications come through on the ATS, there are two phases of review that it's going to do. First, it's going to drop any candidates who are not qualified for the job. Second, it's going to review and rank order the people who are qualified. That is the piece I've spent my entire career figuring out how to do. So let's talk about phase one, the drop phase. Now this has very little to do with your resume and has a lot more to do with you. I'm sorry for the harsh reality, but we need to know. People who are getting dropped in the drop phase are: 1, people who don't meet the minimum experience requirement. 2, people who don't meet industry requirements. If you haven't worked in a specific industry and they want someone who has, you will not get through this phase. 3, you don't meet the educational requirements. Sometimes these are non-negotiables. And finally, this one I had to face for many years, if you're not eligible to work in the country, you are not going to get through the ATS scanner, no matter how good your resume is. Now, what I want you to know about this auto drop phase is that it has nothing to do with keywording. In fact, it's very unlikely that there's anything you could do in your resume to help you get through this process if you're not willing to go back to school or to continue to work and build on your experience. Now, if you do meet all the minimum requirements for the job, and most of us probably will if we're applying to jobs we have any business applying to, we're still gonna get through to a big pile of 50 to 100 highly qualified candidates. Now, most of these, if not all, are gonna be read by a human being. However, they will probably use the ATS tool to help them set their expectations as to who may be the most qualified, and they'll certainly be reading those resumes a lot more closely. That is where keywording comes in. So to truly optimize our resume for ATS and get ourselves to the top of the pile so that we are being read when the person's attention span is stronger, when their expectations are higher, we need to keyword perfectly. So step one is finding your keywords. Now, a lot of people will use ChatGPT to do this, and if you're in a rush, sure, you can put the job posting into ChatGPT like this, then you can add this prompt, and it's gonna spit out some really great keywords that we can include in our resume, as you can see here. Honestly though, ChatGPT is great, but I would recommend doing this part manually, because the better you understand the job, the better chance that you have of getting the job. And I'm also just not an advocate of turning our brains off to do something a little bit faster, especially when it's something as important as this. So to do this manually, we're gonna open the job posting and we're gonna look for 4 things. We're gonna look for job duties. We're gonna look for software and equipment. We're gonna look for industry terminology, and then something we'll prioritize a little less, but still important, professional traits and behavior. Now, once you have that list of words, there are 2 places you need to put them in your resume. And then, of course, we're gonna add those key skills to our key skills section of our resume, like so. Now, once we've listed all these skills once, we are much more likely to score higher on the resume, and that is fantastic. However, scoring high on the ATS scanner does not do us any favors when we're up against 20 to 50 other strong candidates who did the exact same thing. That's where my best advice comes in. This is something I've been doing the last couple years, and it is so effective. Take some of those keywords, add them as titles to the beginning of your bullet points. Now we've added the keywords an additional time, which is gonna really help our performance in terms of scanning, but also make sure you're not stuffing these words in there a million times. 1 or 2 times per keyword is totally fine. And the added benefit of doing this is that when a human being is reading the top 20 to 50 resumes that came in, they're gonna easily be able to scan and see on the left what skills you've got, where you've used them, and it'll really help them to see your value as relevant to the job you're applying to.